We're going to explain how to access your Parallels Windows Localhost from your Mac. This is useful if you're running a web server or other application on your Windows virtual machine and need to access it from your Mac host machine. Here's a step-by-step guide. 1. Check your Parallels network settings. First, ensure your Parallels virtual machine is running. Then, open Parallels Desktop's Control Center, usually accessible from the menu bar. Go to the network settings for your Windows VM. You'll want to make sure that the networking mode isn't set to bridged or NAT. The best option for accessing your local host from your Mac is typically shared networking, though host-only can also work depending on your setup and requires a different process, explained later. 2. Finding your Windows VM's IP address. Once you've verified your networking settings, you need to find the IP address assigned to your Windows VM. There are a couple of ways to do this. Inside your Windows VM, open a command prompt by typing cmd in the search bar and pressing enter. Then type ipconfig and press enter. Look for the IPv4 address under your network adapter. It might be listed as Ethernet or Wi-Fi. This is the IP address you'll use to access your local host. Note down this IP address. Alternatively, if you use shared networking, your Windows VM might have a 10.21n1.555.x IP address or a similar one. 3. Accessing your Windows localhost from your Mac. Shared networking. Now open your web browser, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, etc. on your Mac. In the address bar, type HTTP Windows VM IP address, replacing Windows VM IP address with the actual IP address you found in step 2. For example, if your Windows VM's IP address is 10.21n155.2, you'd type http:/10.21n55.2 into your browser's address bar and press enter. This should load the web page or application running on your Windows VM's localhost. If you are using a port other than the default port 80, you will need to add the port number after a colon. For example, HTTP 10.221.55.2.80.80. 4. Accessing your Windows localhost from your Mac. Host-only networking. If you're using a host-only network, the process is slightly different. Parallels usually assigns a specific IP address range to the host-only network, which allows for direct communication. You'll need to determine the IP address of your virtual machine inside the Parallels network settings. This may be found within the network adapter settings of the VM. It may be something similar to 192.168.64x. Then you can access the local host from your Mac using a similar method to the above, using the appropriate IP address found. 5. Troubleshooting. If you can't access your local host, double-check the following. Your Windows VM is running. Your firewall on both your Mac and your Windows VM allows connections on the necessary ports. Your network settings in Parallels are correctly configured, and you have typed the IP address correctly in your browser. If you're still having trouble, check the Parallels documentation or search for help online related to your specific setup and errors you encounter. Remember to replace the placeholder IP address with your actual IP address. If your application uses a different port, be sure to include it in your browser's address. For example, if you're running a web application on port 8080, the URL would look like this: http://Windows VM IP address 8080.